Hi, I'm Kevin,
And I'm Amanda.
and we are serving up.
All that jam. A lighthearted look at the weekend jam bands.
Where we break down the jam scene's biggest stories,
Talk new bands.
upcoming tours,
And show reviews. A little laughing, some hot takes, and an always positive message for the community.
Week of February 4th, 2024, LITZ.
Welcome back. It's February, and we are here with All That Jam weekly recap. We have LITZ coming up this week, a band out of Baltimore who, on the 9th, this Friday, are releasing an album. They're doing a showdown at the 8x10 with our friend Space Bacon. So next week you'll probably hear about that because I'm planning on getting down there. But before we get into that, we have the top 3 stories of the week coming up in just a minute. And how was your week, Amanda?
Hey, Kevin. My week was good, pretty busy. Didn't do too much music-wise, but I definitely listened to a bunch of new music, including Marcus Rizak's Guitar Head. We had a chance to talk with him, which was really great, and a bunch of other releases that are out now, so plenty of stuff out there.
There is a lot of good stuff, and we have a couple interesting stories coming up. One of them I'm chomping at the bit to talk about, so why don't we jump into
the top 3 stories of the week.
Yeah, let's get these stories going. First, I want to actually give just a little bit of a shout out, Kevin. I didn't even let you know about this, but LITZ, this is a perfect tie in. Austin Litz, who does some kind of crypto wave radio stuff, he's actually going to be playing a show in DC that's going to be coming up on February 23rd. And he's going to be playing with Mike from Galaxy Jams, who has started his own vapor rave thing, and it's amazing. So worlds colliding, Kevin. I just had to mention I'm super excited for them.
Love that.
Yeah, that just got announced recently. But let's get into these stories. So first, we're going to talk about today. Kind of follows a theme that we've been tracking for a while now regarding social media, fair use, copyright, those kinds of things. Just last week, Universal Music Group pulled various songs from TikTok. So this was something related to withdrawing licenses for its tracks. They were trying to come up with an agreement. What happened is some videos began to go silent, and this was late last week. There were some pretty intense negotiations, from what I understand, about a licensing contract, which was set to expire. And this resulted in a huge kind of very let me start again. This resulted in a pretty emotional letter from Universal to TikTok accusing them of offering unsatisfactory payment for music and allowing its platform to be flooded with AI generated recordings that diluted the royalty pool for real human musicians. So, interesting stuff. Universal being the largest of the 3 major record companies out there.
Now, does this go back to the thing about the songs being a little bit slowed down or sped up in Spotify that we talked about the other day? Is that the same kind of thing? They just take the song and redo it and use it?
Maybe, but I think that this was more about TikTok promoting things that were made with AI, in addition to maybe revitalizing classics too. But basically, yeah, it's funny because Universal, as a huge, monolith itself, accused TikTok of putting their own greed above the interests of artists and songwriters. So it's kind of funny to see one huge company telling another huge company that. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's a hero or a villain in this story. Maybe they're a little bit of both.
So, in theory, I can make my own song in AI and then do a TikTok with it. And if it blows up, that's what Universal has the issue with, because I could have used one of their artist tracks.
Exactly. And this has happened before in some similar ways. A long time ago, 2008, Warner Music had pulled thousands of music videos from YouTube, and that kind of lasted almost a year. Warner returned the videos once YouTube agreed to share advertising revenue with them. So there are similar situations that have happened over time. I think it's just going to be that constant push pull of social media platforms, and then these companies that technically own the rights to the songs, legally,
Mm,
but also can't control everything that's going on.
interesting.
Yeah. So we'll see how long that lasts or what happens. But being, the largest of those record labels in an era when that's becoming overall less and less important, I'm not sure if anyone would look at that and really
Mm,
think anything of it at this point.
mm. They're dinosaurs in the computer age.
Yeah, in a way, right? I mean, again, we're talking about that upper, 0.5% of artists that probably have a huge vested interest financially in something like that. For
Mm,
others, it may just be something that they look at and go, oh, okay, that
mm.
doesn't affect me. So that's our first story of the week. The next one, um, I'm going to talk about a new venue that's opening out here in Colorado. It's called the Sunset Amphitheater, and this is going to be in Colorado Springs. Now, normally, I don't know if this is something that would make my top three. However, the story around the building and kind of release date of when they're going to have their first show speaks to a lot of things happening around the country. So let's just kind of dig into this a little bit. So Sunset Amphitheater, 8,000 capacity venue. This is going to be the first music venue of its kind in Colorado Springs. They've got a couple really small venues, but as has been said, Colorado Springs is kind of like an entertainment desert. And so the person who's in charge of this whole project, J.W. Roth, said, you know what? I don't want to take over the Denver scene. That's not going to happen. But I want this to be complementary to music culture. And we need something like this in Colorado Springs because it doesn't exist. So there's all these markets out there, Kevin, similar. The company is called Notes Live. They also have plans to open venues in Gainesville, Georgia, in Tennessee, fast growing cities who don't have the kind of entertainment options that we might in a larger market.
I wonder how much a Live Nation is going to try to screw them with like radius clauses and things like that.
It's going to be very interesting. And I'm sure that that has to be a part of the internal planning and strategy for this company because they're putting in this case, $40 million was the cost of Sunset. And it's going to be beautiful. I mean, they're going to be able to see Pikes Peak, general admission lawn, pavilion, a whole bunch of VIP suites with fire pits. I mean, it's going to be a great spot. It'll have restaurants there, all kinds of stuff. So I could see where this would be really nice to have as a destination, and that would make me more likely to drive down. It's only an hour away, but I don't need to go down there because all the music I want is right here. So I'll be curious to see what kind of acts they get.
Right. Yeah, well, but then you have something like IMP out here in DC and Baltimore. They own 930. They own, I don't know if they own, but Merriweather Post Pavilion, they do all the shows there, and they're separate from Live Nation. But then you have a band like Fish, who's, I guess, big enough to say, we want to play Merriweather. We don't care, Live Nation, who it runs it. And Live Nation's like, well, we want you for the other 30 shows this year. So,
Mm-hmm.
we'll
Yeah,
let that happen.
right, exactly. Lots of inner workings there that I'm sure need to be figured out. So the Sunset Amphitheater is expected to open this summer. I don't think that they have set a date, and the full lineup for the summer shows is not out quite yet. But I'm curious to see how that all works out.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then I thought, Kevin, maybe we could take some time today to talk about our newest friends to play the Sphere, Dead and Company. Lots and lots
Mm-hmm.
of chatter, some great memes coming out this last week about it. Um, well, what do we want to say about this? I don't know. What are your thoughts, Kevin, on this reemergence?
All right. Oh, they added, it's 24, right?
Yeah.
They added the 24 shows,
Mhm.
bumped it up from 18 to 24. But let me read you something. It said on the website, each weekend's three performances will feature a unique set list. How does that read to you?
Each weekend. So are they going to do the same thing every weekend?
Right, or is it just going to be a small pool of 40 songs? I think the thing is they're attaching videos to the songs. So you can't just call audibles and you can't have 100 song pool because there's so many, it costs so much money. I saw something
Mhm.
where it costs astronomical money to come up with these clips for it. It isn't like, you're making a video at home or something like that.
Right. Yeah. So I guess then, I mean, and this is was true even for other bands when I think about the Sphere. So the point there is you're not necessarily going to see the best music of your life. You're going for the experience that happens to be supplemented with music that you love,
Hmm.
right? I mean, I don't
Yeah.
that's the only way I can wrap my head around what the draw is. It's funny because I don't have vertigo, but I do have some issues with bright lights and a lot of things. This is the most unappealing venue to me that I could ever think to go to. But I'm really happy for everybody that's going to be there. I just hope, as usual, that people go there with a mindset of what's going to happen versus what their wildest dreams are.
Right. I was saying with Fish, yeah, and they were poo pooing on me over on that YouTube channel that there weren't going to be that many jams. That they were going to have set list written out, and they were going to know what they were going to do with the visuals and all that. And they're like, no, it's going to all be in the moment, kind of thing. And I'm like, there's no way. I said it's not going to be like regular Fish shows, and I think the same thing's going to be true with Dead and Company. I just
Mhm.
don't see them doing the same three set list every weekend for 6 weeks or what is it, 8 weeks? You know,
Yeah, I'm very curious because the wording on that, as you mentioned, could be taken a couple different ways. And I'm sure
exactly.
right? I'm sure logistically there's a lot of considerations that we probably don't know about. So for people that might be getting a bunch of tickets or trying to stay out there for a while, I just hope that they're happy with whatever they get.
Right. Well, I think ideally what you do is you fly in for one weekend and you see the three shows, and you get to catch three shows at the Sphere, spend the weekend in Vegas. I can't see being out there for all that time.
That seems crazy. Plus, I didn't realize I read the article just the other day where it mentioned that it's weekends. So, I guess everybody's got to take a pause, and maybe that will prevent people from doing what we would do for fish, which is we're just going to catch them all if we can, and it's not even a
Right.
question. But yeah, this is different.
Right.
Now, Kevin, another layer to all of this is around wording. So, that 2023 summer stadium trek, the final tour,
Hmm.
which came with various band members offering comments indicating the band was far from finished. So we saw this little promo come out last week that said in 2023, Dead and Company played their final tour, but there are other ways to make sure the music never stops, and it's going to be a ball.
That was part of the disconnect. Why they stopped touring, because everybody didn't want to go out and do the sheds all summer and play the baseball stadiums. But this gives them a chance to play as many shows as they want. And I don't know if Mayer and company are going to just hole up there, or if they're going to fly in for the weekends, go home for a couple days, you come back, maybe you can go do another show. I know John does, like stuff in Montana, that place he owns and things like that. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good deal. No Billy, it's going to be Jay Lane, but
Yep.
Billy did post something nice, so that was cool to see.
Yeah. I personally, for me, I couldn't imagine, like we talked about, that they were completely finished unless there was something else going on behind the scenes. That's,
Yep.
always an option. But there are some people out there who I guess had really counted on those last summer shows being the end and scooped up a bunch of tickets thinking that's the last time they were ever going to get to see that outfit playing, and they're feeling a little taken advantage of. But I mean, look at history, all the bands that
I've seen the
did
Who
well.
do 4 final tours, and I've seen the Cure do that many.
Mm-hmm.
The
Kiss.
large print giveth, and the small print taketh away.
All right, that's my new yearbook quote. So it'll be fun. I think it's going to be really great to just again see what unfolds. I'm here for it, and
Right.
if nothing else, the response and the social media commenting are it's rich these days. We'll
Right.
put it
Do
that
you
way.
think they stream it?
Mm, I wonder, honestly, how easy it would be to get a stream from a place like that, not really knowing it.
I think you'd get the regular stream. Like it would be the close-ups of Mayer and the close-ups of Weir, and then some band shots, maybe pan back and try to catch it. But I don't think you can. You wouldn't want just the back crowd shot, because that Live Fish doesn't do that, and Dead and Company didn't really do that, like a stationary wide shot.
Yeah, I think it would be surprising if there weren't streaming options for at least a few of them. And if you're going to do that for a few, you might as well stream them all. Unless, I guess the only other consideration would be if that wording you mentioned at the top of this story is true, and maybe there are going to be having to recycle some set lists,
Right.
for those reasons. That to me would be a reason not to stream everything because you're going to be getting something very similar. So, yeah, I'm curious.
It'll be interesting to find out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as far as I can tell, whether it's Dead and Company or any Grateful Dead related, band, it's really all about. I hate to say it, these days, licensing, selling tickets,
Cross marketing, sunglasses, shoes, whatever you got.
you name it. I mean, I'm going to start putting the label on like dog food or something at this point. It doesn't even matter.
Right. Tennessee Jeds.
That's right.
Kibble.
I mean, to me, that's a moneymaker, but
That is. They be coming after us. All right, so let's jump into this interview with LITZ. We had Austin, who is the namesake of LITZ, and Nick Thrasher, who is the drummer. Austin plays keyboards, sax, vocals. Also in the band is Logan, his brother, on bass, and Dan Gallerman on guitar. What we get into this first segment about is trust on stage, improvising, pushing boundaries, and how all three of those things interrelate. So check it out, and we'll see you on the other side.
So I'm listening to you and I'm thinking that probably a lot of this happens and is so great because of trust. So, like you were talking about, sometimes those loops or something popping up, I would imagine you all have built a ton of trust amongst yourselves to kind of be able to go with whatever might be happening on stage. Do you think that's kind of grown over time, or is that something that you all have kind of always had?
I think that's part of the jam band thing.
Yeah. It's kind of just relinquishing control to, whoever is comfortable taking the lead, really.
Yeah, and everybody kind of at times takes the lead, but for better or worse, that is so sometimes that concept can be really stressful because you do have to with the because we've all played in a bunch of different bands, a bunch of different genres. I currently produce pop music for people as well, and play with them, and it's very cut and dry. This is your part, and this is what you do. And there's a beauty to that because it's not too stressful. I get up on stage, I know exactly what I'm going to do that night. And with the improv, it's more fun, it's more interesting, it's more magical. You can explore uncharted territory, but it is a little bit stressful.
It's risky, much riskier.
You might, but that's what we signed up for. That's what the crowd signed up for. They come expecting you. They want you out on a limb to take that risk. And like, I'm not going to deny. I've definitely been. It can definitely be like, whoo, like
right.
We jammed through that
we fell
one.
on our face on that one. Yeah. But as a patron, also, like, I love seeing that. Like, I don't mind if I see a band kind of fall on their face because I'm like, you took the risk, and that was worth it to me as a viewer. and that's kind of, that's part of the game.
Yeah, I like the risk taking, but and it, like you asked, does trust build over time or whatever, and it does. It gets less stressful, especially like me implementing the Ableton thing. I mean, we went from a rootsy go-go funk-ish psychedelic, like somewhere in between Parliament Funkadelic and jam band.
Yes, exactly.
And then we have now evolved into the jam, like Funktronica, Jamtronica, like making use of these like very synthetic sounds or whatever. And there's been a lot of times on stage where things may like where we're pushing the boundaries and things might fall apart. In fact, I've started incorporating a lot of these new tools over the past like couple months, and and I have to go back to the guys at the end of the show and be like, sorry, that thing went a little haywire. I'm working on that, but they're not mad because I'm trying to push the boundaries. Right. And I'm never mad if they bring a new instrument in or a new tool or like add to the drum kit or add to the guitar rig and like you got a new pedal and it goes haywire. That there's a certain level of trust involved where I know that like if you fucked up or I don't know, hopefully it's cool to swear.
Bleep.
But yeah, if people mess up or whatever, anything like that, then I know that it's like, hey, you're trying to push the boundaries, and I'm definitely not going to mind, and the crowd's definitely not going to mind either. They think it's cool. Like if you go out on a limb and like shit goes sideways a little bit. That's some of my favorite stuff that I've seen bands do is where it's like, oh, that wasn't quite right, but I see what they're trying to do, and it's really innovative, and that takes me to the magical place.
And I think another element to that as well is like, obviously as the players, we are going to notice something that's quote unquote a mess up versus like the crowd might have zero idea, but we walk off stage and we're like, oh man, we really screwed that one up. And other people will come up to us and be like, that was the best part of the set.
Well, so let me ask you, you put all this stuff up on Bandcamp. You just said sometimes you walk off, you're like, man, we fucking shit the bed tonight.
Yeah.
When you listen back, do you say, wait a minute, maybe we didn't? Is your perception skewed walking off stage than what you hear down the road?
Sometimes like 50-50 where, if something really stands out to us live where it was like, oh, that was rough, then more than likely, if we listen back, we'll have the same feelings. But, sometimes it is like, oh, that actually turned out way better than we thought.
And don't tell anyone because, this is a private conversation.
Secrets.
But it really helps to multi-track record everything because if there was anything egregious, sometimes
I have tweaked or fixed.
I got a volume knob that I might use occasionally here or there. If I'm feeling spicy, that takes a lot of effort to actually do volume automation across a whole show. If we're doing 2 or 3 shows a week, and then you're doing 2 or 3 shows of live recording, that's, I don't know, 90-minute set each time. That's, I don't know, that's 4.5
hours.
There's 4.5 hours of automation to go through on a bunch of different instruments, which sometimes does happen. When we're on the road, I will do that because it's like, what the hell else am I going to do? I'm sitting in a van, and I'll get pretty in the weeds with volume automation on the live recordings, but yeah, there's it's live sound is forgiving. We always remind ourselves if it's like, I don't know, there's something very forgiving about the way that the sound is coming through a sound system, like in an outdoor venue. It just sounds good.
Yep.
For the most part, it's pretty forgiving. In terms of like intonation and stuff like that, I don't notice like vocals being out of tune. Then on the multi-track recording, when you can hear like my voice into this microphone right now, you can really get the nuance of intonation and stuff like that, and that can poke out more. So it can go either way. Sometimes we listen back and I'm like, this sounds way better than I thought. Other times I listen back and I'm like, what the fuck?
And now, while we're on the topic of live recordings, little bit of a plug here. Our Bandcamp, we do have a $5 a month subscription to like get, all the set as soon as they come out, they're free. All of our backlogged stuff also free. You can download our albums. And then we are also on nugs.net. We actually put even,
nice.
we put even more sets on Nugs. Bandcamp kind of gets the exclusive ones where we're like, yeah, that's a really, really A+ one. But yeah, lots of stuff on Nugs.
YouTube.
Austin self-produces everything. We keep it in-house.
Cool, Kevin. I know we've got a lot more coming up with the interview. But before we do that, just a quick reminder to find us on social media at All That Jam Pod or allthatjampod.com, and also on YouTube. Don't forget to check us out there, as well as anywhere that you find your podcast. So make sure that you are liking and subscribing. And if you like what you hear, definitely leave us a review. We'd appreciate it. So, do you want me to lead into the second part?
Yeah. And next up, we have live or whatever you want to do.
Okay. Yeah, cool. All right. So, Kevin, with that in mind, I want to hop back in. We're going to be chatting here. Hold on. With that in mind, I want to hop back into this interview. And in this section, we're going to be hearing about Austin and Nick's feelings on live recording, what they do about that, how they see that as part of their art that they create on stage. So why don't we take a listen?
So you bring your own board with you to record live?
Yeah, we do the in-ear monitor system, and ear health is important.
The Behringer X32 with the PowerPlay 16 units. I watched a video of Goose. This is pre-COVID, somewhere
long time ago,
and I was like, that looks like an interesting setup. Or maybe like we did a show with them.
Yeah,
and this is before they blew up. Yeah. They opened for us a few times and stuff. And yeah, they
you had pigeons. You had pigeons.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh yeah, they played with pigeons a ton. I mean, I've been playing with pigeons for a decade.
Yeah.
But yeah, we use a Behringer X32 digital console, and then we use a split snake. So we travel with all our own microphones, all our own gear, everything. What we do on stage is our gear, and we split the signal, and we give the sound guy a XLR snake. And the others, so it's a split snake. So you plug everything into this snake, and one side goes to the front of house, the other side goes to our monitoring. And I multi-track record via Ableton into a template via the X32 that we are using for monitoring. And oftentimes, since it's all the same gear, I don't have to do a ton of mixing.
It's pretty consistent.
It goes into a template that's already kind of done. And
yeah, I was going to say that gives you all probably a lot of control, regardless of where you're at. You can kind of guarantee more or less what you're going to get out of that. That's awesome.
We've actually definitely come across some situations where you show up to a venue and they kind of don't. I'll put venue in quotes. You show up to a bar and they kind of don't really have their shit together. And sometimes we will just have to take over, where we're like, nope, we're using our board. We're sending the mains from our board, and we're going to handle it ourselves.
Yeah, there's a quality control for sure when you roll with your own gear. It seems like a lot, like other bands have come to us, and it seems to be a pretty common formula now, which is the Behringer X, or the gate, the entry level, because you can upgrade and get the Midas stuff and all that good stuff. But for the entry level rig with the Behringer X32 console, there's a lot of quality control where it's all our own stuff. The in-ear mix stays the same every night. I can edit it on my own. And what I was saying, sorry, is it seems like more. It is more. It's a little bit more setup somehow or another. It saves us time. It saves us energy. It's just so consistent. And everybody sets up their own world. I call them like sound islands. So it's like I have sound island. Everybody has their own sound island, and then we plug all the sound islands into the main ocean, and it's so much easier. So essentially everybody in the band is their own engineer. We engineer our own sound island, and then plug that into the main Behringer, and that goes to the front of house. So it's like we don't tour with a crew or anything like that. It's all us. And it's actually pretty, because of the way technology is these days, it's
not
actually
crazy.
super doable.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
I'm just thinking back, with all of the different tools that you're using, it kind of makes me think like this is that next era of like what Prince was doing with Lynn drums back, Purple Rain days. And at that time, people were like, what what is this? Like, but you have a drum set there, you know, you can
Right.
play drums. What are you doing? And they think the ability to probably decide when enough is enough with all of that, like there's probably a line somewhere, and we've talked with other folks who do mixing and mastering, and we kind of wonder, like, how do you know something's ready or it's done or you've kind of gotten it to a certain place? And I guess the answer is you really don't know, but you have to at some point say, like, okay, this is ready, we've got
Right.
what we need. Is that ever a challenge?
You just press the export button and close your eyes.
There you go.
Yeah, it's ready when you. I try to make deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah,
I feel like with
Yeah.
with the freedom of having everything in house, it definitely kind of allows for maybe sometimes like a little too much time in something where
you can go crazy with it. You could definitely. And fortunately, we're not doing like IDM and like really in depth like electronic music, because you can just get in the weeds with the mixing on that stuff. But yeah, it's ready. It's ready when you can tell. And there's a bunch of stuff. It's like there's a bunch of stuff that could be better or this or that, and you're just like, you just go for it. Make use of gates. That's huge. With I record into a template, and I use the shit out of subtle gates, like more like expander kind of thing, where it's like it'll duck the multiband gates for live, and it's a lot of cheating involved where you don't have to get too fine tuned with the mixing, but it's just ready when you say fuck it.
Yep.
Love it. Yeah, I worked at a tech startup for a while before it got acquired, and we would always say, "Don't let perfect be the enemy of good," because then
Yeah.
you sit with something for too long, and you're realistically not going to be able to do that much more at a certain point.
No one's going to notice that last
Yeah.
one.
No, you're not going to notice.
No one
Yeah,
is.
totally.
I don't think
And I
so.
think it's kind of like a gift and a curse of music in itself, is that there is no such thing as perfect, at least in my eyes. There's always, that's like the beauty of playing an instrument and playing music, is like you can always learn more, you can always get better at whatever you're doing. And something that at the time you were like, yep, this is it, this is the best thing in the world, 5-10 years down the road, you can look back and be like, what the hell was I thinking? That is garbage.
Yeah.
They asked someone asked Dylan once if he ever painted his masterpiece, and he said, I hope I never do.
Yeah, because then you
yeah.
kind of feel like you've hit the end of the road there.
Yeah, it's all the cliche. It's all the journey, not the destination,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, I feel strongly about that. There's no such thing as perfect, and it's a numbers game a little bit. Like if you write 100 songs and pick your favorite out of the 10 out of the 100 that you wrote,
you're gonna have 10 good songs.
They're gonna be high quality. Same thing with like programming synthesizer noises. If you like, for a lead for a song, if I program 20 sounds and then pick my favorite out of the 20, so a lot of it is like a numbers game. I think you have better luck finding higher quality, not by trying to refine, but recognizing that magic just happens sometimes. And when you do things on a higher if you scale up the repetition, like scale up the number, then you scale the probability of having something magical happen, and having that ability to recognize when something magical is happening and be like, hey, that was it. Let's bottle that lightning.
I love hearing about the equipment. It fascinates me. I don't tape like I used to, but just thinking about some of that stuff. So that's always fun. We're going to have one more clip coming up from LITZ, but I just wanted to catch everybody up, let you know what's going on now, the rest of the week. Tomorrow we have Joel and Ryan from Humphreys coming on, and basically we asked them if they wanted a hit record, and they had two different answers, and it's pretty fascinating. On Wednesday we got the Rumble coming on, talking about the Mardi Gras Indian tradition, since Mardi Gras is coming up quick. On Thursday, Natalie Brooke, we caught back up with her about what her Natalie Brooke band is doing as opposed to Infinity Tribe. So check that out. Friday, Peter Negroponte from Gorilla Toss, my favorite. We did another catch up. Obviously, we're getting into February already, but a lot of bands had a big year last year. So Saturday, Elias Wallace on What's New for 2024. This is someone you brought to us. You want to talk a little bit about him?
Yeah. So I had been listening to Elias, who's primarily a vocalist and a lyricist for years, but could never really find him online because a lot of the credits for the songs that I heard him on only had a first name. He is from LA, kind of born and raised there, steeped in that culture. As far as I can recall, not traditionally trained in music theory or composition, really feels the music completely and has done a lot of different things in his career, including being adopted by a Danish hip hop band and getting to tour around Europe. And these days, he is doing more of his own work that really crosses a bunch of genres, including that more acoustic kind of stripped down sound. So really fascinating guy. And I think everyone's going to enjoy that.
Nice. And then we have someone else who made a big jump coming up next Saturday or next Sunday, Lyle Davinsky, who was in the Motet over quarantine. He left to strike out on his own. And we talk about something that he worked on all of last year and is slipped a little bit into this year called the Seasons LP. So you're going to want to definitely check that out. But let's jump back in with LITZ here. We have set list construction because I love talking about set list, and we get into live cues they use in jams, kind of bringing it full circle back with that first clip. I used to tell people I did writer workshops. I'd say just write and write and write, and then cut 50% and cut 50% from that, and you're going to end up with something pretty good there.
Absolutely.
Can I circle you guys back around to you have this new way of doing things? How are you incorporating older songs, or have they just fallen to the wayside?
Some of them fit.
Yeah, some of them we've definitely maybe abandoned because vibe wise we're like, it had a time and place back then, and it sort of some stuff just doesn't fit the vibe that we're going for. But we have also taken some of those older songs and like reimagine them in more of a style, because going from 6 to 4 is obviously you're losing some sound there, so you got to approach things a little differently.
Yeah, we've abandoned some stuff for sure.
Sorry to our fans. We're sorry, guys.
Yeah, we've definitely.
Well, then you bring it back in 5 years, and people are like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, that's true, and which we've done with almost every song. We will. Some of them fit better than others, but you can sneak in some like obscure deep cut, and it's gonna work. For the most part, it'll work. But. I mean, we just try to keep evolving and pushing the boundaries. Have some fans been like, "Oh, I missed this or that," and like they have come to us and said that this or that and here or there. But we need to stay true to ourselves as artists and evolve. And I personally love the sound that we've landed on. This is like when I started the band 10 years ago, I was listening to a lot of like you said, like Conspirator or
Lotus,
Lotus,
Sound Tribe,
all that. I specifically remember one of our first shows at the 8x10 in Baltimore, and they were playing Sound Tribe, and I kind of knew a bit. Like I said, I went to music school for production, but they didn't teach me much, and so I was listening to Sound Tribe, and I was just like, "What are they doing? Like, how do you make music like this? This is wild." And now I feel like I've kind of figured out how you make music like that. And it's a lot of like production,
kind of behind the scenes.
Yeah. A lot of
to get it there.
A lot of that. And we will find, like, if people get upset and leave that we're not playing some of the old stuff, double as many new people are going to come in that like the new stuff. And I'm okay with that. And it just feels right. I want to do what feels true, and what's most fun for all of us. And I think everybody has a good time playing.
I have a theory about Fish. People are like, oh my God, they did this 30-minute jam. And when I listen to them, I feel like they had that in rehearsals. They're like, all right, this is the A minor jam. And this is the basic form of it. And Trey, when he talks into the little microphone, is like, let's go into the A minor jam. And I think a lot of it is more prepared than people are like, I can't believe they just did that out of nowhere. And I'm like, I think that they thought long and hard before that happened.
They do.
That's definitely a thing.
I would guarantee.
Yeah. Now another secret trick that we're not talking about right now that it's everything's muted, right? We're off talkback mics. When you're on the in-ear game and you're running your own shit, it's really easy to set up talkbacks where that's something like at practices that we were doing a lot of to like as we're jamming, just kind of talking to each other to get through shit. And we were like, we could be implementing this live, and we're sort of doing it in the same way where like in a jam, someone can very easily call out, hey, I'm going to go to this vibe and, in 4 bars, and we all just like slam it. And we are actually improvising, but it comes off as a more rehearsed idea because nothing's rushed or like guessing. We do have an idea and we can articulate it.
When you transcend something, you have to know everything about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. Become a master. There's like 4 levels of awareness. And the last level is like unconscious knowing, right? There's unconscious unknowing. And that's where you don't know that you don't know. And then there's conscious knowing, conscious unknowing, where you realize that you don't know. And then there's conscious knowing, where it's like, all right, I'm in the key of C, and the C blues works right now, and those are the notes, and my logical part of my brain is rocket firing. And then there's unconscious knowing, where you're just in the flow going for it. And that's the level that any master attains. But as Nick was saying, the talkbacks are really, I often like forget about it. But in terms of improvising, you asked about like triggering loops and like throwing shit at the guys, like totally. Because of the talkbacks there, it's like, we're in 120 and we landed somehow or another, we're in a D major jam. Okay, let's go to One Night Stand. That's in D minor, drum fill, bam. And we go into it. And that happens a lot where it's like off the cuff doing a thing. But as you were saying about Fish, like other people, I don't know directly, I haven't talked to them, but other people have expressed that they've learned or that they know certain things about their jam techniques. Maybe they've talked about it in interviews, but like when Fishman goes up on the ride, it signals a thing. There's these codifications of musical themes and ideas where if the guitar player is really emphasizing the 5, the note 5, like so if you're in the key of F and then you're in the guitar player's hitting like a C, 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 like really wailing on that, you could hear it. And he's trying to tell us like, oh, modulate to C. And then the bass player jumps up onto the C. There's a lot of little tricks. Or if for us, we use a handful of different things. One in particular is where I will do a single note melody, and the guitar player will then do a single note melody that complements or is a counter melody or a harmonization. And then so right there, the harmonic structure is open. So we're creating the harmonic structure via the melody. Okay, we're not playing chords. It's all melody, and the bass player has all the freedom in the world to change the chords. And that kind of goes back to what I was talking about, where composing the songs, you can trigger a loop and you can use the drum part of section A and the bass line of section B, or the chords of section C and the melody of section A. But you can do that live, where we lock in. So, and we rehearse this, where it's like, all right, me and Dan are going to on the fly come up with the melody. And then when you hear us lock in, that's when you have all the freedom in the world. Change the bass line. It's going to sound tight. If you change the bass line within color within the lines.
And then it kind of everything feeds into each other in terms of that flow where, now the bass line has changed. That's going to make me change the drum beat, which, that in itself brings out another whole vibe where, maybe it gives them the freedom to change a little more on top of that.
All right, Kevin. Well, that was a great one. And I'm very excited for everything that we've got coming up, of course. Um, I have a couple things going on social media right now that gave me some interesting thoughts, and one of them is a poll that I just opened up asking people what's the first thing you do when you get to a show, because this actually became a point of some lively debate among some of my friends recently, the rail riders versus those that are going to go get a drink. I'm a find your people person. That's the first thing I do, but I've never really thought about it before. So I would just say to everybody, be on the lookout for, some fun stuff like that. And yeah, I think both of us are going to have some fun music experiences coming up in the next week or so, and I'm excited to talk about those.
Nice. Yeah. Now you got me thinking. I usually do whatever the person I'm with does. If they
There you
want to
go.
run to the seat first, I'm like, that's cool. If they want to stand in the lobby and see who they catch coming in, that's cool. I have to think about it somewhere. That's a great question there. Look for that on our socials. And with that, I'm going to leave you with stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long. I'll see you next week, Amanda.
Thanks, Kevin.